Well, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers around the globe, a warm welcome to our webinar on COVID-19 ramifications, the post-pandemic impact and career counselling, organized by University of West England, Bristol. I am Barrister Faisal Mahmood Anabil. I am a barrister at law, and I'm a proud alumni of the University of West England, Bristol. I am working currently as a legal counsel for a group of companies here in Bangladesh. I'm also an accredited international commercial civil and family mediator. I'll be co-hosting this event.
We will be covering few agendas today that will be followed up with specific questions to our set of panelists. In the end of the session, we would have a Q&A session where the audience are most welcome to ask questions to our set of panelists. I'm Farzana Tashreen. I'm a barrister from the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn. I'm also an accredited mediator for ADR ODR International. I work as a senior associate for a set of chambers with corporate and litigation wing. Of course, needless to say, I am a proud UE alumni. Today, I'll be co-hosting the session with Barrister Faisal Mahmood Anabil.
In these unprecedented times, we hope that you're in good health and mind. And before introducing our esteemed set of panelists today, a brief introduction about UE is definitely warranted. We also encourage questions from the viewers at the end, which we will be trying to address as well. It is my extreme pleasure to say that University of West England, Bristol is one of UK's most popular universities with over 30,000 students. It is one of the fastest growing universities in the UK. UE is based in Bristol, which is an amazing place to study and one of the best cities in the UK to live in. The city itself offers plenty of opportunities both socially and professionally. It's a gold-rated university for teaching excellence and framework by the UK government. We have excellent reputation for graduate employability, which is precisely 94%. UE is also number 11 in the UK for student satisfactions, which actually demonstrates a very high level of student satisfactions and international students friendly learning atmosphere. UE also ensures top teaching for our students equipped with modern facilities, which helps our graduates to experience 360-degree learning experience and real-life work experience alongside study. UE Bristol has been a popular destination for law students from Bangladesh since it is one of the very few bar-providing universities with great reputation. It has a glorious history of contributing towards the legal studies in the UK for more than 40 years.
Other than excelling in academics, UE has also been known for laying down its phenomenal examples in relation to corporate social responsibilities. From time and again, UE has played an integral role in working with the stakeholders of the society towards corporate social responsibilities. One of the primary examples of this was wholly sponsoring the Bangladeshi team consisting of street children to participate in an international cricket tournament held in England at the end of March 2019. The children lived in a residential center called Peace Home in Dhaka, Bangladesh, which was run by a charity named Ledo. Such a donation was highly appreciated by Mike Sheriff, who is the chairman of Friends of Street of Children, saying that such a generous donation has made a huge difference to the lives of the street children, as this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Currently, the world that we are living in, where there is always a constant fear of being affected by COVID-19, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Steve West, has extended his hand to NHS by making temporary arrangements in the ECC Centre, allowing 300 beds in case the coroner reaches its peak. Also, it has welcomed the NHS staff and doctors to stay in Franchise campus so as to allow easy access to the corona patient if there is for any new emergency facilities. Moving on to the next part of the session, where I would be introducing all of the guests. Starting with Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury, sir. He is an advocate practicing in the Appellate Division of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh. He is also the head of laws of the London College of Legal Studies, SAP. He is also a barrister and a fellow in CIARB. Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury, sir. So if you may introduce yourself for the audience, please.
Thank you, Farzana and Anabil, and thank you, EWE, for inviting me to this webinar. My credentials have been given, so I'd be happy to participate in the discussion today. So I'm practicing as well as I'm working in the legal education sector and the other sectors, and I hope the session will be enjoyable today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Moving on to our next esteemed set of panelists, it is my pleasure to introduce Muhammad Samiul Haq, Barrister at Law. He's also a practicing advocate in the Supreme Court of Bangladesh, and he's a partner for Credence LP. Barrister Sami, sir, may I kindly ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It is an absolute pleasure to be part of this webinar. And I'd like to thank University of Bristol and organizers for inviting me. Best wishes to you all. I'm a practicing lawyer. I've been practicing in the Supreme Court, in the High Court Division. My main sector of practice involves litigation. And at the same time, I'm involved in corporate practice as well. Well, apart from that, I used to be a teacher. I used to teach English law, but obviously that chapter is over for me. So now I'm looking forward to the practicing career. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Going forward to our next guest, Barrister Ferdaus Rahman. He is a practicing advocate of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh as well, and he's a partner for AS and Associate. Barrister Ferdaus Rahman, sir, may we kindly ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hello. Assalamu alaikum to everyone as well. I'm Ferdaus. As you have heard that I'm a barrister as well, but luckily I think I'm an alumni of UWE, a proud one to be in that case. I think I'm one of the oldest UWE alumni that we have in Bangladesh, so that makes me feel like a dinosaur. But apart from that, I think I have also been in practice. Basically, I'm a predominantly a corporate practitioner. I have had previous experience of working as a primary lead counsel of different international organizations. And like Sami Bhai, obviously, I was involved in teaching British law as well as Bangladesh law, but those days are behind me as well. So I think more reason for feeling like a dinosaur, but I'm quite happy to be here. Thank you, UWE. Thank you, Faisal and Farzana, for arranging this. I'm sure we can share our experience and grow together. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so much for our esteemed guest for coming here and for agreeing to give us your time. As we were saying that our session is divided into a few parts, and we'd like to start with specific agendas before the question answer sessions or the specific questions at the end. Now, if we, without further ado, kindly go ahead with our first agenda, which would be the impact on employment. Now, may I kindly start with Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury, sir. What do you think is the impact on the employment in the legal sector due to this pandemic and its magnitude?
Thank you. Well, you see, we are, without any sort of hesitation, we all know, and we can say that we are in the worst financial crisis of the century, and it is sort of a Great Depression is looming, and IMF has called it a great lockdown. All right. So we've got business closures, travel restrictions, we've got the lockdowns. So the economic hit globally will be felt for a long time, and we yet do not know when this is going to come to an end, and that's important. Now, so far, 215 countries and territories have been affected. We've had like, what, 5.1 million cases, 334,000 loss of lives. And we have also been badly hit over here in Bangladesh, right? I think like still it's like 400 plus loss of lives. It's an official figure. And if I'm not wrong, the global economy will be shrinking around 5.5 to 6%. That is like the rough estimate. The different modalities are there. Now, UK, I mean, Bristol, and of course, we share this common platform. UK is also very badly hit. If I'm not wrong, it was like they're saying that's like the crisis of 300 years. Never have ever has this been seen before. So, in this perspective, of course, Bangladesh being badly hit, and we are densely populated, we are disaster prone. We just had a super cyclone the other day, and which caused huge losses in the West Bengal and Bangladesh, of course. So because of this fact, Anabil and Farzana and the audience, our garment sector, employment, supply chain, tourism, every sector, education, science, whichever you call it, it has come to a halt. And we are still having holidays since what, 17th, 18th March, lockdown, and until 30th of May. And it might even be extended after it, we don't know. And I have been told that we might have over 3 billion taken off our GDP, the economy, right, in Bangladesh. And the private sector credit growth has declined. The foreign direct investment, it has as a very short increase of 4% or so. I was looking at a report. And so we have got serious macroeconomic management issues, I would say, and ADB has forecasted 900,000 loss of jobs if it continues for 6 months or more, right? So in this perspective, I mean, price hike, foreign remittance decline, we've got export income shrink. So we all understand where we will be standing in the coming months. So yeah, I mean, our government has offered stimulus, but mainly that is for the export-oriented industries. But other sectors obviously would be needing stimulus, like the private sector. So that's going to be a big challenge. We know the resources are, there is a scarcity of resources. So we have to understand that. We have to understand the challenges also faced by the government. So this is the time I've been saying that we should support each sector, each other. So yeah, now in terms of legal sector, of course, we are here for a legal webinar. I mean, we understand that despite legal profession having diversity, that you can have your career in the courts, in the in-house, many other, like you can teach law, I can do a lot of other things. But I think other than handful of chambers, there would be a huge crisis for the mass of the population of the profession. Because you understand that in terms of litigation, I mean, the courts are closed, right? And only recently we had few courts offering virtual services, and lower courts having mainly looked at the bail matters, right? So civil proceedings have come to a complete halt, right? And so therefore, only with few chambers having technology, having the, should I say, the skills, they have taken, I would say, some services, but others in the profession are struggling. And even in the in-house, if we can see, we don't know litigation means no income, right? And unless chambers are earning, how would the associate survive?
Unfortunately, I think there is a bit of an issue with Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury's connection. I think at this point we'll wait for a.
So even, I'm fine now. It's okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah. So even in in-house sectors, if you have problems with the business, how would the business involve lawyers? Because we have to get paid. It can't be pro bono all the time. So I think the impact will be paramount, and certain chambers might even have to close down, I'm sorry to say. And also, we do not have a stimulus package in the legal sector, right? And you saw, and we all know that even loans have been offered by the bar councils, and there were like hundreds and thousands of applications. I don't know the exact figure, but that actually puts us in the perspective that we have a big struggle coming up. So at this stage, the picture is very gloomy, but definitely we have to, as the discussion goes with Ferdaus and Samiul with their contribution, I'm pretty sure that we'll go to the next stage of discussion, and we'll explore the challenges, that how we can meet the challenges. Thank you. That's it from me.
Thank you, Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury, sir. Moving on to Barrister Ferdaus Rahman, sir, with the same agenda. What do you think would be the impact on employment in the legal sector, and what would be the magnitude of it?
Well, thank you very much. I think So I think as Khaled sir just pointed out that we can have a very positive outlook towards it, but we also need to understand and realize and appreciate the impact of what we are going through in this pandemic. If I can just come up with some comparable data to support what Khaled sir was just saying, that how the legal profession and every industry is going to be impacted. So although there is no separate assessment or analysis that has been globally done in terms of how legal industry would be impacted, I mean the chambers and the lawyers. But if we make a direct comparable statement match with the ILO report that we have seen, what is expected is that during this time, when the pandemic is ongoing, they are predicting 4.5% job loss. And that would apply to legal industry as well. But what worries me is that all these reports, including the report I'm talking about, predicts that once economy reboots, they are expecting more than 10% job loss. So there would be a 2.5% increase, a hike, meaning currently everyone is trying to survive. But once reality sets in and we start operating, this deficit would somehow one way or another come back, and it would likely to end up in more job loss, more job cuts, and that would also be reality for lawyers. And I think the closest data that I saw when I was looking for this information was that in US, in America and Europe, this particular two continent, they are expecting more than 11% job loss and 11% job cut for legal community. I have no reason to say that that wouldn't be the same for subcontinental, if not more, because we are a lower income and mid-low income countries. So something between 10 to 15% of the lawyer's job, the legal community would be under threat. And I think we need to be a bit creative, as we were just discussing prior to the session, that out of the box thinking would be necessary. And I think uh, there's no reason for us to lose hope, and we need to be smart. Even if you are in a chamber and the chamber is closing down, that's not end of the days. There are so many else that you can think of, and it is up to you. It is for the whole community be working together to come up with a solution. I think it starts with what Khaled sir proposed, that there has to be some sort of stimulus, some sort of supporting fund that sort of bridge between this transitional period, because the transitional period is going to be the most critical time. However, on a better note, I would end that uh, through creative solution, out of the box thinking, this still can be dealt with. This is going to be a couple of years, but we can manage this if we face it with courage and a bit of diligence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If I kindly go to Barrister Samiul Sir with the same question, your thoughts as to the impact on the employment in the legal sector due to this pandemic and its magnitude.
Thank you. The first two speakers, both Khaled sir and Faisal, they have, I think, wonderfully pointed out the current situation. You see, uh, as you mentioned about ILO, it estimates. I have a report which says that as many as 25 million people would become unemployed, with a loss of workers' income of as much as $3.4 trillion. So it is becoming clear that these numbers will get bigger, and the magnitude of the impact can be understood from this. You see, in a world we live in, where only 1 in 5 people are eligible for unemployment benefits, layoff spells, catastrophe for it will create huge problems for millions of families. So, as you said, as Faisal said, we need to act smart, because it's very difficult to save the community. As if you talk about our legal community, yes, Sarah has rightly pointed out, many chambers are closing down. You will find chambers and lawyers with no work right now. So if our legal community, if we do not come together and think about it, I think we'll be facing a huge problem. So as we're mentioning about the benefits and fund for the lawyers, we also need to think how practical it would be. You will find lawyers who will not come forward and asking for help as well. So I don't know, actually, and this situation, as we have entered into a period of uncertainty with the coronavirus outbreak, our justice system is under considerable strain. And also, the post-pandemic situation, I'm very confused with this, because given the situation we are in now, especially in Bangladesh, I don't know when we will be able to call us that we are in post-pandemic state. And as it looks like, we'll have to carry this crisis situation for a long time to come. So again, I think as lawyers, we need to come together and find a solution to this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Barrister Samiul sir, for such an informative insight. Moving on to our second agenda for the session, I would request Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury sir's opinion in relation to this first. What are the current and the post-pandemic thoughts and expectation of employers, and what are the anticipated changes according to you?
Okay, I mean, if we take it from where we gave our introductions, me and my respected colleagues, firstly, I think survival, and then restructure and recover. I mean, I would phrase it like that. We have to survive, and if we do survive with our limited resources, with hardship, with a lot of effort, support, cooperation, backing up, I think we need to restructure in parallel, and then we have to try to recover, and we have to, as I said, that I think is the timely decision making is the key, a key factor. I mean, anyone who takes a courageous step forward might have a risk of losing everything, but you never know, because in that way, some of us might be thriving, but others might suffer. So my fear is there would be a huge gap between the two tires, two ends. So this is where I think the profession might suffer, but we have to be optimistic, right? This is I think the purport of the discussions. On the positive note, I would say some writers have called it that the coronavirus will turbocharge the legal industry transformation, because we are entering the digital stage or age, I would say. And maybe the legal profession will require a total reshaping of the landscape, because you see, our ecosystem has been affected in the sense that our consumers, providers, academia, the judicial system, every sector, every tier has been affected. So what I feel that, many of us might be working from home in future as an option, and which would require, I would say, but working from home might be, of course, less productive, because as a human being, as a social being, we need to interact, we need to move, we need to go forward. Virtual movement is never equivalent to real movement to me. I mean, you know what I mean? Therefore, it will not be the same. So there is a moral dilemma. If I'm moving, I might not be able to maintain the distancing. So I might have a virus issue. I might have a health hazard. On the other, if I'm at home, right, I'm not, satisfied. So a lot of employers will have to do a restructuring. Chambers will have to reshape the sitting arrangements, which needs money, investment, huge issue. I would say top and tail technology would be required, like e-suits and other forums where you are entertaining clients virtually. You might be having webinars, web meetings. I think that's a key factor. And also, I think we have to move on and give up the traditional way of looking things. Like we as lawyers, we are very traditionalists. We don't want to change, right? But this is the time, I think that this is a different, because changes will be broad, deep, and enduring. That's how I see. Now, we all have heard of this man called Mr. Richard Susskind, right? He wrote books. He wrote books, and there was a time everyone laughed at him. He wrote books like Tomorrow's Lawyers, Future of the Profession, The Future of Law, Transforming the Law. Last year, in 2019, at a conference, he said, remember last year, May, that it is the decade when many of the radical tech-led programs being designed now will be ready to come to real life, namely artificial intelligence and online courts. These will replace our old ways of working. So important. He mentioned many years back. And now he says recently, in a recent I saw it, if law firms cannot find a way to work remotely in the coming weeks, COVID-19 will rapidly run them into the ground. So I think that the key part is technological excellence. Mr. Richard Susskind is a Gray's Inn bencher. He's a scholar, and he was advising the Chief Justice, the judiciary of the UK on e-courts. And so you see, and now you see how efficiently they are functioning. So you know what? I think we will be advising less and less. Simple advice to clients will go away. Rather, I think we have to build systems that will in turn advise clients. I'm not saying that artificial intelligence will replace us, but we need to master AI, right, to make the best use of our resources. And so this is, I think, it's very important to me. Like you have seen the online course, many lawyers are struggling to know what this is all about. You have lots of tutorials, but sometimes these are confusing, and people are advising each other. So you see, the positive outcome would be we will have more sharing between chambers. We'll have more sharing between the industry. I think there will be a competition for talent, and also the client hunting will intensify. This is one point. And to my, in my view, legal consumers will look for solution-based services. You know what I mean? So they will look for solutions. So chambers would be giving solutions with their elite legal expertise, right? Will thrive and will survive. So this is where I think we have to think broadly. So the traditional law partnership model, I think it was showing cracks. I think that's outdated. So we need to look at the supply chain, and we need to take service of the IT giants, you know. So we need to work in collaboration in future. I think talent platforms will accelerate, right? And there will be more collaboration. Maybe corporate departments will coordinate. You know, the American style law firms, the head of the firm might not even be a lawyer. He's a manager, right? So we might be looking for those days where you give up the commercial space, expensive commercial spaces might be off. And then people will have smaller spaces with e-suits and those smart boards, right? Where you can control your affairs. Being even at home, you might be controlling or supervising 20 associates because it's expensive, it's unsafe to move around. So in that way, I think it is the moving on would be based on technology, which of course means that in Bangladesh, we are lagging behind. So we must have the support. We must have the broadband support, the internet support, the infrastructure. I mean, of course, other panelists will contribute. But just look at our beginning of the e-judiciary. I mean, cases were filed using a Gmail account, right? And of course, which basically means a lot has to be done. You need to have dedicated servers. These informations are confidential.
Data security.
You need to have backups. You need to have, if there's a hacking, you saw there's a law firm which has been hacked, and the blackmailers, the hackers are now demanding, I think, $41 million or something, if I'm not wrong, because they are advising clients like Madonna, right? And all the other celebrities, and they're saying we will you know, publish everything in the market. Can you imagine the embarrassment we might be facing? So we have to have a very perfect, safe system of operation, and also think of the lower tier. We can't only think of high court. We have to think of the lower tier, district courts, the lower courts. They should also have the e-support, and most importantly, our learned lawyers, learned colleagues must receive the basic e-education. It's not just going through a few tutorials, because tutorials will not, it's just a beginning. But you need to know how to share documents, you know, how to exchange documents in some cases, and how you quote, how you deal with the witnesses, for example. So I think it would be education for everyone in the legal sector, including our clients. So this is where I think we have to do a lot of discussions like platforms. I think platforms like these are very important to share our knowledge, because I am also learning from you all, and I'm also sharing what I have been reading in the current in the recent weeks and months. Yeah. So we have to be optimistic, but my key word is e-technology, excellence, cooperation, and deal with each other on solution-based platforms. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury, sir, for your all-encompassing, distinguished input. At this stage, if we may kindly move on to Barrister Ferdaus Rahman, sir, we would like to hear your thoughts as to the expectations of the employers and the anticipated changes.
Thank you. I think Khaled sir has covered almost every aspect of the issues. So what I would contribute is from completely a corporate practitioner's point of view. Of course, the issues are going to be similar. However, if I take the anticipated changes first, that will help me to talk about what are the expectations. So when we talk about anticipated changes for lawyers, as Khaled sir was referring, that you would see a complete change in the client type. That's the first one. I don't think for a corporate practitioner like me, for another year or 2 years probably, we would be looking into the similar surge of foreign investment coming into the country. They are dealing with us on regulatory matters, trying to understand the regulatory requirements and going through the investments, structuring their ventures. I think right now, once the economy reboot, more focus for everyone who is already here would be on operation, how to maximize their operation, how to control their cost, how to efficiently manage their internal issues. So there would be a complete change in the client types and the clients who are coming, their requirement, the type of assistant they would be needing. So that's a big anticipated change. And also, along with the same thing, as Khaled sir pointed out correctly, that the law firms, they have to think in how they are arranging their workplace. So the workplace, the working hour, even the billings would start changing. I'm sure all of you have noticed that whether it is Facebook or LinkedIn or other places, for last month and a half, lawyers and the legal communities have been sharing a lot of valuable resource. They are spending valuable time to publish valuable resource for the public, and they are not charging for it. Maybe 2 months ago, this particular document would have been something they would have charged, billed for. Why? Because there is a change. Now the information in the basic stage would not have any financial appeal to anyone. People would need to know that you are aware of your subject matter, you know what you need to say, and as Sir correctly said, it has to be solution based. No one's going to be now looking into generic information anymore, because the generic information is out there already. So these are the changes that we all have to adopt as an employer. That's why someone who, as a partner in the firm, I have the opportunity of employing people as a recruiter for different clients. I sit in panels and bench recruiting panels. So I understand that their need would be for you as a lawyer to come and to offer certain aspects. Sar has covered most of it, but I will just add on top of the technological part is that you have to add value. Even as a law firm, I see that talent is going to be something we would be after, but someone who has talent plus networking skill, someone who has collaboration, someone who has a good network. And I think blockchain is a future. So someone who is very good with technology, these are the aspects and these are the values that employer would be looking into. And I would really urge all young, upcoming, aspiring lawyers and all lawyers, including myself, that we are open to adopting these changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Barrister Ferdaus Rahman, sir. We would move on to Barrister Samiul Haq, sir, about the same agenda. Could you share your thoughts and perception about it?
Thank you. Well, both Khaled sir and Firdaus actually have covered all the points, especially in terms of corporate practice. So here, I think it would be beneficial for everyone if I can add one or two things in respect of litigation. As you've just mentioned, it's not going to be very easy for the litigation practitioners. It's not going to be very easy because you see, you will find lawyers who have very traditional mindset, and they have been heavily relying on litigation practice. So many of them, of course, have become briefless. And obviously, since most of the institutions are closed down, you would hardly have legal grievance to be addressed at. So for that very reason, you see, these lawyers would find it very difficult, to move up to the ladder and to take something or adopt something new. So especially lawyers at the district level and lawyers who are practicing the lower courts, what you've just mentioned, they would find it very difficult to adopt with. And the self-employed lawyers, you have traditional self-employed lawyers who have one or two juniors working for him. They will find no other way because they haven't learned. Most of them, they're not used to corporate practice. So what will happen to them, and how can they cope with the situation? And this is a very a crucial question actually, because this area, these lawyers I'm talking about, they're huge in numbers, and so I think again we need to come together for them, and we need to find we need to make ways for them so that they can be inspired, and they can look into other aspects of law, for example commercial aspects of law. Not They should not confine themselves within the periphery of criminal and civil practice. So these thoughts should be introduced into their minds. And this webinar and this sessions are very helpful for them to understand. If this pandemic, if this lasts for another 2 years, they cannot survive. They have to come up with different solution. And we need to tutor them so that they can be motivated, and new ways can be created for them so that they can invest their time, and we can in this way we can also save their talents. So it should not be all about presenting submissions before the court. Rather, we should engage them. We should create a system, a safe environment for them so that they can thrive. And with regard to the virtual courts, I will come back to that. You see, as far as High Court is concerned, as far as the numbers that we have right now, basically, urgent interim applications are being filed, but this does not represent the whole legal community. I mean, litigation community. So you have senior, learned, experienced lawyers at the district court level as well as in High Court level. They're basically doing nothing. Because they're not very well equipped, and the juniors and the clerks. We need to think about the clerks as well. These lawyers, clerks. So because they are part of this profession. So I think this situation is also very pressing, and it needs to be addressed by all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Barrister Samiul Haq. I think the next agenda in particular is actually more central to the theme of this webinar, and this is particularly more relevant for us as well. This time, at this point, we'll be talking about the career counseling for the young and the aspiring lawyers. Your suggestions, thoughts, do's and don'ts. Now, we have been fortunate enough to have all three of you in our social and other gatherings, and we have also been fortunate enough to be a proud alumni for LCLS South as well, and to be taught under Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury sir himself. Now, but this time I think the world wants to know, and we'd like to start with Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury sir as to your suggestions and thoughts for the young and aspiring lawyers.
Thank you. I wish I could answer this simply and very positively. unfortunately, that's not the reality. I mean, if I say too much, obviously everyone will understand that I'm being too optimistic. But again, optimism is the order of the day. There's no point talking negative and going nowhere, because we have got one life to live, I keep telling you, and we have to make the best out of it with our limited circumstances and situations. Now, we all know, firstly, all of you would want to practice, at least get the right of audience, and so that it creates a platform for you for your future development after you have been called to the bar or after you've done your graduation. Working in the chambers would of course give you the satisfaction, but that is not everything, because employers would want to know, even if you're applying for a retainership of some, or even a position of a junior officer in some sort of multinational organization, this is the need of the time. That for how long have you been practicing, or do you go to the courts? I mean, even if you don't go to the court, the license matters. But we all know the frustrating picture of having just 3 exams in the last 3 years, and the last one had 42,000 plus candidates. In another webinar, I was going through these statistics to see that we have now 50,000 lawyers in Bangladesh, and 9,000 or so High Court enrolled, and I think 8 to 10,000 are in the pipeline somewhere due to exam issues and stuff. And in India, they have got 1.9 million lawyers, right? 26 High Courts and 1 Supreme Court. That's the statistic. Of course, they are a much bigger, larger nation. But if you think of the regular, the bar exam, they have got an all India bar exam without any miss every year. They're supposed to have 2 every year, whereas we have got almost, I mean, nothing. So as a result, when I hear complaints that why there are too many graduates wanting to practice law, I get a shock. I mean, people wanting to practice law, people wanting to become lawyers, this is such a big blessing. I mean, this should be taken in such a positive note in any nation, because without rule of law, without access to justice, right, one wing of the state is crippled, and the checks and balances and everything. So if we do not support the younger generation, if we do not make their paths easier, simpler, less complicated, flexible, it's not the point of failing people in the exam. The last exam had a 20% pass rate. I mean, I think the most difficult bar exam in the world has a higher pass rate, if I'm not wrong. So what is the point of failing 80% people and having a satisfaction they don't know anything? I mean, I know people, they haven't failed anything anywhere in their lives, but when it comes to this bar exam, it's a shock. So, I mean, to start with, the practicing, I think we have to work together with the stakeholders, post-pandemic, of course, that at least have the exams, make the questions, I would say, more comprehensive in the sense that questions should trigger an intelligent answer. Not a question like under which section you file a murder case. Is it 301, 234? That actually makes, to me, little sense. Rather, if you can set a question like what is not murder out of the 4 MCQs, that makes more sense. You know the ingredients of murder, right? What is missing in one of, or in 3 of these, and in the other one is the correct one. That actually would trigger your brain. It will nurture your brain. So this is where I think lots of thoughts should be given. And as I've said, that I am not going to go into a political debate, but I think what we understand that it is everyone's right to do politics, to have a view, but at the same time, we all have to be what? Educated in that political sense, so that, you know, the best of the people, the leading ones, the fair-minded ones would actually lead the country in future. So you are the future leaders. And my question is, what are we doing about you? So are we not failing? I think this is the question everyone has to ask. You see, we always end up taking a position that I am right, you are wrong. I am superior, you are not. This is a problem. We have to have a broader mindset to understand what you all know, it's called empathy, right? I need to understand why you are behaving like this. I need to understand why you are not doing that and why you are doing this. This is where I think a post-pandemic, I have a feeling we might become more human. You know what I mean? We might be becoming more, you understand more empathy, because when you see what's happening in the USA, Germany, Italy, and the UK, right? People losing their lives at their homes without even being able to tell their parents or the children that they're dying. I mean, in that way, if you see the global suffering, I think none of us are actually in a less sort of pathetic situation. So this is where I would start, that we have to think about the practice. And before that, you see, you have to go for skills development. I mean, do everything possible with your own resources. That this very webinar, I mean, the internet is there. You know, English law graduates, you have been lucky. You are lucky people. We are lucky people. Come on. I mean, I always tell myself that I should be thankful to the Almighty that most of the people are actually much less privileged than we are. So if we cannot make the best out of it, I think we have ourselves to blame, right? So do short courses, go for small sort of accreditations like 2 days, 3 days on VAT, customs, labor, supply chain, whatever you can get. IT with law, ADR, you know, and if you go through these webinars of the last 2 months in different platforms, these are all posted online, right? Some of them has given excellent overview of labor law management. Some of them have talked about supply chain, arbitration, mediation, ADR, you know, court practice, e-judiciary, challenges. I think go back, go there and spend a few hours, take notes. You know what? I still take notes of the webinars that I listen to, and I try to learn in an organized fashion, whatever I learn something new. So with my 25 years in education and practice, if I can learn and if I can tell without any shame that I do not know so much, I mean, others should not be really worried about knowledge, because knowledge is there for you to taking. The other point is that I would say, although it may not be in this platform, but our universities should change their syllabuses, make it more progressive, make it more IT law based, have more ADR component in their syllabuses. We should have a continuing professional development system, CPD type of thing, so that even after because you see, after we become advocates, it's like we know everything now. We have got nothing to achieve. That is a very wrong sense of perception, because we have to have those courses going on so that senior lawyers, judges would come and educate us, and we can also share what we have learned with them. This is how we can move on. Also, please subscribe to free newsletters. Go through the institutional pages, CIARV, CEDR, GAFTA, AIAC, you know, SIAC. Go to those platforms, subscribe to their free newsletters, get information. Lots of things are offered for free. You don't even know. And you know what? This is how you build network. You build networking. If you keep writing to them, they will acknowledge you and they will invite you back. And this is how you develop future links, future clients. It's not just I wait for my senior to take me to some client and he will say, wow, you're wonderful, you're good. You see, that is a long shot. Your senior might be talking virtually with everyone and you won't even know, right? So this is what is important. And once we have this pandemic thing at least taken care of, once we start going to courts, please, I have been saying this for a long time, do not ignore lower courts. Go to the lower courts, learn, see how a case is being dealt with. Go through a complete trial, criminal, civil, look at the case files and compare with the reality and your paper. In that way, you know, you imagine, you vision things. The top cricketers, the top sports people, they imagine, you know, hanging on to the impossible catch and so that they can catch, right? Unless you imagine, unless you have the vision, you cannot be there. Many people will talk negative. I have seen people criticizing webinars. I have seen people criticizing guests in the webinars, for God's sake. Come on, this is the platform where we are sharing, we are learning, and we are caring. You know, we are having a discussion in a practice session, right? I mean, and we said to each other, without clients, we hardly speak. So this pandemic perhaps is a blessing in disguise, in what sense? That this has triggered us to talk to each other. So this is what I think is important. And also look for competitions. There are lots of e-competitions in mediations, in mooting. Enter those competitions, and work through it, and you have the satisfaction. Develop your own blog, your own page, write more, okay, contribute more. I'm happy to see my students writing on force majeure, writing on frustration of contracts, contributing to other avenues of law. So important. Domestic violence, for example, human rights, e-courts. So this has created, I think, a door for their future development. And keep planning, don't give up, be very patient, and most importantly, look at your physical and mental health. Okay, do some exercises with your limited resources. You can't probably go to the gym. Do some exercises, keep yourself motivated, and support each other. Talk to the near and dear ones. Talk to your family. Don't go quiet. That's very important. And once this is over, definitely, and I would request UW, Bristol, and all of you, Ferdaus, Samiul, and everyone, I think we should keep going on with these webinars and these platforms even after pandemic. It's so important that we know each other in a different way. In that way, we start developing a feeling of togetherness, a feeling so that his crisis is like my crisis. There's no point having a satisfaction. Thank God, I am not the one suffering. I might be suffering in 24 hours. I don't even know. Life has become so uncertain that I don't even know whether I'll be found COVID-19 positive tonight. So in that way, I'll put my family in jeopardy. So when our lives are so disturbing, so uncertain, we might have a COVID-21. I keep saying so. So are we ready for the future challenge? And you saw how underprepared we were when this all struck us. So hopefully this will be an opportunity. This is an opportunity for all of us to stick together and work as a group, as a profession, and not only as a profession. I would invite interprofessional rapport. We should not criticize our doctors. We should not criticize our police services because they are doing their best. This is the time to motivate each other. Even if people are making mistakes, this is not the time to, demotivate them and then keep punishing them, because this is where everyone is suffering. So I think in that way, hopefully our younger generation will not lose faith. You have come all this way. You have spent so much money, so much effort getting your certificates, getting your qualifications, getting acknowledgement. I think it is just one step ahead. So look for a brighter future in a very positive fashion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before handing it over to my co-host, Barrister Farzana, I would like to humbly remind our guests that we actually catered specific questions based on your area of work and your area of preference. But unfortunately, like always, we are running a bit short of time. We might have to have a bit shorter discussions on the questions, or we might have to deduct a few questions. But at this point, I think this agenda should finish, even though shortly. My co-host, Barrister Farzana, would you please continue?
Right. Thank you, Barrister Faisal Mohammed Anabil. I would like to move on to Barrister Samiul Hoxer about the same agenda, if you want to add anything on top of what Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury sir has said. So we can't hear you. Your mic is muted. So we would request you to unmute your mic.
Yes, I got it. After hearing from Khaled sir, it just shows how important sir is to us. I mean, that was quite motivating, sir. And who is better than you to talk about these issues? And actually, as if when you were talking, it should not, it shouldn't be taken as if you were talking for the young lawyers only. Actually, you were talking for us as well, and a lot to take from you, sir. And I wouldn't add nothing actually, but I just want to make one point that Sir has raised. Even in this critical situation, Bar Council should seriously consider what Sir has suggested. And this is getting out of the hand, actually. I mean, this is getting quite frustrating. And I think the responsible persons, they should take responsible for this situation. And definitely what Khaled has suggested, I think it is in our minds, in everyone's mind. And we just cannot ignore this situation. And as for the young lawyers are concerned, as Sir spoke, we need to improve ourselves as we always can. And as far as legal practitioners are concerned, I think since you're not, if your scheme of work is now limited, then of course what you can do, you can increase your knowledge not only in the field of law, in economy, in politics as well. You can learn about legal literature. You can develop your jurisprudential understanding, and at the same, so that our profession is getting diversified. So you can, while you're litigating, you can bring other concepts into play while making your submission before the court. I think that is also very important. So I will end my submission here.
Thank you very much, Barrister Samiul Haq, sir. I think we would briefly go to Barrister Ferdaus Rahman, sir, with his thoughts and suggestions as well for the young aspiring lawyers before going on to the specific questions. Sir, would you please kindly?
Thank you very much. I think, first of all, every time we hear a lawyer joke, what's the most popular one? If I do two top ones, one is, of course, I do not agree with, hopefully, there are no lawyers in heaven. The other one is that lawyers and doctors, they never ever can say that they are done reading, learning. And I will just bang on that point because I think Khaled sir and Sami bhai both mentioned that important aspect, that continue to have your skill developed. Do not have the wrong perception, as Khaled sir said, that you know it all or you are done learning. I would be focusing on just very quickly what you need to learn, probably from my experience. But I think I would endorse what Sami bhai was saying, that we talk about post-pandemic. When is that? No one knows. So you have a lot of time in your hand. Things would, this is just wave one, wave two and three is coming. So use your time. From my own individual experience, a bit of survey that I have conducted on different people, I have seen that it is only 15 to 20% of your knowledge that you gather from your academic courses comes into play. The rest is your experience, the rest is your ability to research, and the rest is completely on your business knowledge. What Sami bhai was saying, that do not only focus on law, there are so many other aspects that you need to know to become a good professional in this legal arena, especially in the post-pandemic situation. Just quickly, I would suggest that you should have very good industry knowledge. Whenever and whatever work you're doing, litigation, corporate, whatever type of work you're doing, you should have good industry knowledge. If you're working on a product, you should have very good product knowledge, because being acquainted with the industry and the product is very important for a lawyer. Also, be in touch with all the R&D in the sector that you work in. So if you are someone who has an opportunity to work in a power sector, be very aware of the research and development in that sector. Know the challenges and the opportunities, regulatory incentives and the restrictions that you have. Also, very carefully start learning about the competition of your client, competition of the client's product, market and economy trend, process procedure relevant with those particular industry, because these business knowledges will take you and give you the additional edge that you need. And as Sir correctly said, that attend different courses, long, short, whatever length. I myself went on to finish a business degree. I took an HR degree because of I wanted to to understand the 360 of the whole matter. I would recommend that to everyone. And as a parting thought, I would say that cross profession as Sir suggested, a continuation of this is very important. And I think it's not only from people who has done it before. So for me, I benefited immensely from what Khaled sir said. You probably learned something from what we are sharing today. You also can share and continue to share so that we can grow as a community and we can deal with this as a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Barrister Ferdaus Rahman, sir. Let me again take the opportunity to thank our panelists, Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury, sir, my apologies, Barrister Ferdaus Rahman, sir, Barrister Samiul Haq, sir, for sharing such an informative insight to our audience. At this stage, we would be moving on to the stage where we would be asking each one of you specific questions on different specific topics. To start with, Doctor, the first question is addressed to you, Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury, sir. What are your thoughts about post-pandemic changes in the education sector for students and the teachers?
Okay, again, this should not be much different from what I've said as far as practice is concerned. You have seen that in our higher education sector, I mean, depending on their individual abilities, universities have started teaching online, right? And we have been teaching online in LCL South at South since 23rd of March because we follow UOL curriculum and the BPP curriculum, so we have to do it. But pretty heartfelt to see that the private universities took effort, took the initiative and started online. But obviously, again, the question of disparity. Firstly, it's not possible for everyone to have a smartphone or a laptop because they were in remote places. They went back to the home districts. How you expect them to come and attend those sessions virtually? But from my own experience, I'm an adjunct professor of Eastern University and Eastern University. I'm teaching in MBA and LLM. I had almost 85 to 90% attendees. So, initially they were a bit laid back, not too interested, but when, I motivated them, I'm pretty sure other teachers did the same thing. They came to classes, they did their assessments, and which basically means the current semester has been compensated more or less. And also steps have been taken so that those people who are unable to come to classes, those people who are unable to join, they would not be punished or, there will be no measures against them. They can always recover going for a fresh receipt or retake the term without any loss of money or time. You know what I mean? But public universities have totally come to a freeze, if I'm not wrong. Like Dhaka University could not take, obviously for obvious reasons, they're a much bigger platform. You can't expect that to happen in Dhaka University. Funding issues, cost issues, management issues are there. UGC, University Grants Commission, came up with some sort of a direction of 17 points, and they approved e-learning and e-examination, and they've also allowed universities to take admission for the next semester, which is quite encouraging, which means education has to move on. It has to move on. So e-learning platform is developing, but at the same time, I must admit that it is a different challenge to know whether students are actually listening to me, because most of the cameras are off. I don't even know where they are, what they are doing, whether they are there at the same time. So that's a big challenge. And I think it takes a lot of effort to convince students, because when you see us in action face to face, it is all about learning. Like how can you learn advocacy without seeing a senior advocate in action? I mean, it's not about if Dr. Kamal Hussain sir or Amir Islam sir is attending a virtual hearing and I want to see them in action, I'm not part of that case, what are my choices? So you see, platform has to be open for everyone in future in terms of case hearings. So here at the university level, I think it's extremely important that there should be more budget for the education sector, like for the legal sector. In that ways, universities will have the funds to support students with internet facilities. And I think this e-learning platform has to remain, at least as an option. And when it comes to e-learning, e-education, it can be synchronous, it can be asynchronous, which basically means you can have live classes online, And you can have classes, lectures pre-recorded, uploaded, and students can always come back. And this is very good for people who are not too privileged to have the online platform, because they can always buy some data in their own time and listen to the lectures, download them, and carry through. So in that way, I think it should be a hybrid learning session, should continue in every university. You have seen Cambridge has gone online until 21.
Yeah.
King's College, most of the universities, because they are losing hundreds of millions of pounds and dollars. Boston, Harvard, everyone has gone online, and they will have the online platform. So in Bangladesh, we have to follow, because the modality, and we have to acknowledge that when physical sort of distancing is needed, social distancing is needed for the present and maybe for the future to a limited situation, we need to keep the options open. So I would say e-technology, development of e-books, e-platforms, more search engines, but at the same time to ensure that students are actually learning. I mean, someone asked me why you think e-learning would be equally effective as physical learning. I said, look, where are lectures very effective in the first place in the private universities? Because I'm involved with Dhaka University as well, with other places. I have seen that we try to give everything to everyone in a very short span of time. It's all just memorize, sit the exam, and forget. That's not real learning. That's not real grasping of the topics. So in that way, I think when you learn online, you face more challenges, you read more books, you put more effort to your research and to your, I would say, what you produce. So in that way, I think we have to take it positively, and also sponsorships should come, private support should come to the industry. More people should come to the education sector, you know what I mean, right? With their contributions. I would invite the business houses, the entities, like, without naming them. Why not develop e-platforms in the universities, help the university with infrastructure, so that our students can actually have a good degree, a world sort of class degree, and then start contributing. And you see the beauty of it, we can even have foreign students study in the e-platform in our universities. Why do we always have to depend on them? I mean, if we can have a top-class e-learning platform with good teachers, skilled teachers, right? We do have. All they need to do is to cope up with the future. In that way, we can even invite students from UK, USA, Canada, coming for a degree in our own platform. We have to think big. We have to think broad in order to excel in this world. Otherwise, again, I keep saying, if you get frustrated, negative, that we won't be able to do, then we will be blaming ourselves and not taking a step forward. In that way, I think it's important that we develop the platform as such. Yeah.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury, sir. Certainly, your illustrative impact on the education sector of Bangladesh has greatly benefited us, and I think now the world has had the chance to hear a little as well. I would also take this opportunity to kindly remind our panelists that we are just closing to the 1 hour mark, and we have been gracefully permitted by the UE a bit of an extension for 20 to 30 minutes, as we have actually prepared a number of other specific questions for all our other panelists based on their area of expertise and their amazing work that we have been able to see so far. So, and furthermore, after that, we'd like to answer a few questions if time permits. We would like to request our dear panelists to keep that in mind. And without further ado, if I kindly move on to Barrister Ferdaus Rahman sir, would like to ask you that how do you think this pandemic has already reshaping the corporate culture and the corporate culture as a whole with all its facets? Barrister Ferdaus Rahman sir.
Thank you. I think we have already discussed how things are being reshaped, the type of clients, the need, how you do workforce management, how you analyze your cost, how you analyze your operation. Everything would change. You have to benchmark yourself against the best of the best to survive this situation. I think the more pertinent issue here would be mainly to think of that is this something that we are facing for the first time? yes, in terms of the type of the situation, disease, and the pandemic, a lockdown. But as Khaled sir mentioned, that positivity is the order of the day. So optimistic way of looking at it would be that this is a challenge. And as a legal community, as a human society, we have dealt with challenges before. Uh, most of you have grown up seeing changes, smartphone, YouTube, Facebook, you name it. There have been changes in terms of how everything happens. Even before Skype came in, we never thought that this would be possible. But now Skype is such an integral part of our practice, because if I have to do a meeting, we do it. Think about Zoom. How many of you were familiar with Zoom before the pandemic? You didn't use it because that was not something you wanted to do. But now everything is reshaping. But we have previously responded well to development of technology, challenges thrown at us, and we did it with perseverance, resilience. And I would just say that the whole thing is shaping, the corporate culture is changing, way clients are interacting would be changing, the way client would be looking to you as a lawyer, as an advisor would be changing. Learn to adopt, because you can only survive if you're flexible, if you're open to changes, if you are learning, if you are developing, and you are adopting the changes. So my advice would be that be very diligent in terms of how things are developing. As sir was suggesting, that keep an eye on every free new information that's coming out through a newsletter, through a post, and be connected so that you are ahead of the curve. uh, just as a final thought on this, that corporate culture has never been a settled thing. As a corporate practitioner, I can confirm you that has been evolving. Since I started, I'm sure before me, it has been evolving. And every month we sort of adopt, adjust. And I have found these changes as part of my daily adjustment to work. Previously, whatever the client were asking were XYZ, now it's ABC. But once again, you go back to the fact that as a lawyer, you need to provide solution, and only then you can provide solution when you have practical business knowledge and understanding in corporate world. So keep learning on those particular facets. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Barrister Ferdaus Rahman, sir. The next question is posed to Barrister Samiul, sir. What do you think is the post-pandemic impact on the court proceedings as a whole?
Thank you. As we all know, inevitably, and like every sphere of normal life, existing dispute resolution proceedings, whether in national courts or in arbitration proceedings, are already experiencing the impact of COVID-19 outbreak. Many national courts and arbitral institutions are now alive to these issues, and they are looking at solutions. And of course, we refer to the technological ones. Now, the more pressing question is whether we are ready for the delivery of virtual justice outside a brick and mortar courtroom. Well, it can be said that in the courts in Australia, Canada, India, UK are already having their footprints in the digital space. Bangladesh as well, we have started our journey of conducting judicial proceedings from 12th of May 2020, following an ordinance which was passed on, I think it was on 9th May of 2020. So I would say this is a remarkably quick decision and a very quick response, which I think is remarkable. The ordinance is a very brief sort of law, but it supersedes all other existing laws, including Code of Criminal Procedure and Code of Civil Procedure. So, so this is I would say this is something which we obviously we were always thinking about, but we never thought that this would come this quick. So I think this is a great news for us. So I want to be optimistic even if we are not 100% ready for virtual court today, but we will become ready tomorrow, inshallah. Well, regarding, however, at the same time, you see, I would like to quote one thing very shortly. This is from Joshua Rodriguez, QC. He made a very interesting comment on March 2020. What he said is that the courts and tribunals of England and Wales were at a particular disadvantage. A decade of underinvestment in court buildings meant that some were unable to provide such basic necessities as soap and water, let alone hand sanitizer. But those same courts and tribunals had an advantage over their counterparts in many other countries, that they had already started working online, and they were able to conduct hearings and deliver decisions remotely without any of the participants having to live. Now, this is the difference here. Now, in Bangladesh, of course, we do not have that infrastructure, so there lies the difference. I want to be optimistic, but however, I think I need to address some of the key issues here because I think it is very early to make comprehensive comment on virtual courts' future prospect in our country. You see, we have a number here, I think, which is from Prothom Alo today, yesterday rather. Jay, we already have 28,349 interim applications of bail being filed. And out of them, 18,585 people, they have been granted bail. So this is again, I think, remarkable, I would say, because we couldn't think about it 2 months back. This was unthinkable, and that has happened at the district level. We're not talking about High Court. So that means, though the number, actually, if you can compare with the original number that we have in the last year or 3-4 months back, this would be very less or minimum. But again, I think we should be positive about it. I think this is a great start, I would say, and we should hope for the best. However, we actually, we don't know under what circumstances these bail petitions have been filed. Whether they're only a group of lawyers taking advantage of technology at the expense of more learned and experienced but technologically challenged lawyers. You see, if full participation cannot be ensured, then in long run this is not sustainable, because those lawyers will hugely suffer. So we need to develop, as everyone said, we need to develop a culture. We need to tutor all this. We need to create a system where everyone can learn about this e-judiciary. And you see, apart from these interim applications, we must not forget about trials. The civil and criminal trials, they're very important. As Khaled was talking about, that the young lawyers should go and attend lower judiciary. You see, the trial system is not a reality yet because of the complicated nature of the procedural issues that are involved. It is not happening also readily in other jurisdictions as well. But you see, it is very difficult for me to imagine how our judges and lawyers at the district level can attain the requisite expertise to conduct trials in virtual courts. So we'll have to wait for that. And you see, if there is no trial, inevitably there will be less filing of interim applications too. And as a result, both litigants and lawyers would suffer loss. And now if we turn our attention to Supreme Court, things are a little bit brighter. You see, urgent motion applications, both criminal and civil, and writ petitions are now being heard. And this can only get better. And I would love to see motion applications with less urgencies are also accepted by the Honorable Court, because now only the urgent cases are being accepted. However, due to the lockdown, also you see, it's not easy to prepare a writ motion, for example, as it involves filing of different range of documents, which are required to be procured from different institutions, which are not fully functioning. And in addition, if you see, if businesses are not running, if exports are restricted, and if government operation is limited, then there will be less cases of grievance anyways. So, the lawyer community would suffer loss because of that situation. Apart from that, I would want to talk about final hearing of pending cases in High Court as well. You see, this is personally a very important issue for myself because one of my main areas of legal practices, it involves final hearing of cases. If situation does not improve in coming months and the courts remain closed, then final hearing of urgent cases needs to be conducted in virtual courts. Otherwise, it will jeopardize administration of justice. Justice will be denied due to the delay because there are urgent cases that badly need to be heard. This is something we cannot afford. So I hope that the issue of final hearing would be put forward when the time comes, and Honorable Chief Justice would consider this. So this is obviously a situation we can hope for the best. However, I just mentioned, at the same time, not all the lawyers are technologically updated. Many of the lawyers, if not majority of them, they run their individual practice. It would not be easy for them to upgrade their practice to the technical side. So, our bar council, our bar association, should come with their constant support so that, they can deal with the situation. Again, I would say that, you see, locking down of businesses, it has a direct impact on legal practice, and this needs to be understood as well. So, because, the dispute needs to have an area to be created. So for that reason, locking down, obviously is an embargo. So that needs to be understood. But however, since the virtual courts are in operation now, by all accounts, I would love to see these courts become a reality. And even after this pandemic is over in Bangladesh, this should become a reality like in other cases too. Well, that's anything else that I would like to, if you would like to ask.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so very much, Samiul Haq, sir. I think this has been a very, very relevant topic, particularly the beginning of the judiciary. And I think, despite the current inadequacies and the problems that we're facing with it, it is undoubtedly something that we have had hoped for years now, and I think it can only go better from now on, considering the suggestions that has came so far. Now, I'd like to unfortunately remind our dear panelists as to the constraints of time. We initially had planned a number of other specific questions for you, but at this point we will go on with one specific questions to each of you, and then we will try to take a few questions from the audience, and then we'll like to conclude it. So let me, without any further ado, let me go on with my next question. And I think the next question in itself is so huge or so big of a topic that warrants another webinar. But if we may have a brief opinion of Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury, sir, as to the impact of social distancing or the pandemic on ADR and its future.
ADR should this is the chance to develop ADR further. We have had platforms of ADR since 2000 in our CPC, in our labor law, Orthin Adalat Ain and other laws, but these have not been very effective. So I would say that just like the fact that we have been, the theme of this webinar is excellence in e-technology. And ADR doesn't require that sort of formality, like you have to change the High Court rules, have to have an ordinance as such, and in ADR you don't need them. So in that way, I think the arbitrators, mediators, negotiators are already using Zoom, WebEx, and other platforms, right? So I think this is a chance to take ADR further. But I have a feeling that this sort of direction should come from the top. Why are we not making Section 89 mandatory? We have made it mandatory, but it has not been made effective since 2012. What has been stopping us? I think this is the time when we already had over 4 million cases pending. Now this number will just grow after this disaster is over. So in that way, we need to have more platforms, and in that way, I would urge the stakeholders to involve the younger generation, the mediators, the negotiators with you, like the UWE, Bristol alumni, other alumni, BPP, and NMU and other, where you have had mediation training, formal mediation training that you have taken with ADR ODR International, right? Where these trainings are actually coming of use in our legal culture. Not much. So this is another thought process that we have to worry about. that why not involve, at least you can be an associate to a mediator in a mediation and learn with the lead mediator. For example, I was going to another webinar under the legal aid regime where the panel lawyers do mediation in the court cases and come back and they even earn some remuneration, right? So why don't we have that CPC more active, right? And I would say more promotion should be given to the Orthoin Adalat sector where banks are encouraged to mediate more with the clients so that to lessen the burden on the, because now more businesses will shut down due to the loan recovery issues. And we did not have a COVID-19 act, which we urged that there was a comprehensive act dealing with the limitation, dealing with this sort of force majeure clauses, like in what Singapore has done, what England has done, UK has done, we might have been in a better shape. So I would say briefly that this is an opportunity that the ADR sector should undertake and try to advise their clients accordingly, that the court, the adversarial avenue should be the last resort, but we have to advise our client according to our needs and tell the clients that try to settle as amicably as possible, try to renegotiate your disputes rather than having a further dispute out of your negotiation. So in that way, you can minimize your loss, because it's always an issue of having another supplier, another contract, which actually needs another set of costs. If you can deal with the existing client, the existing relationship, at least you know each other, already. This is where I hope that ADR in every sense of the word, it's not just ADR in a loose sense. ADR starts with negotiation, right? Then comes mediation, conciliation, adjudication in respective cases, then arbitration. Arbitration is much more complicated. It's a bit advanced. Interplay of laws, international commercial arbitration is very complicated, expensive, time consuming at the same time, because you get the award, you enforce it in the country, that creates further avenues of legal issues. So I would urge the younger generation, take it simple, use the e-platform, and also advise your seniors in the chambers to make use of those technologies. Okay, I think that should be fine for now. Thank you.
Barrister Farzana, you're muted.
Oh, I'm not.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury, sir. I know it is indeed a topic that requires another webinar in itself. I would like to move on to Barrister Samiul Haq, sir, with a question that what are the steps that are to be taken to eradicate the resistance regarding online court practice that we are facing?
Sir, unmute
Sir, you're muted.
your microphone, please.
Yes, you see, virtual courts have started running only for a few days. So we need to wait for a few more days and give it more time so that we can understand the difficulties and the resistance better and come up with a proper solution to this. For example, I haven't personally appeared in virtual courts yet, but I have heard from my colleagues who have already appeared and the problems that they are facing. One of the with regard to high court virtual cases, one of the main complaints that the lawyers are actually coming up with is the urgency issues. You see, obviously that is also always. This is a very disputed question actually. What would constitute an urgency? It is not defined. Obviously, you need to submit one paper proposal defining urgency of your case, and if the court accepts it, then your case will be heard. But the senior lawyers have seen comments from senior lawyers. What they are suggesting that this is not the best thing to do, because you see, because at times, in courtrooms as well, we need to make the court understand why this case is urgent. So maybe in writing this will not be sufficient. So they have problem with that. You see, Honorable Supreme Court led by the Honorable Chief Justice and other Honorable Judges have been working very hard to develop and improve the system. And I'm sure we can only see it getting better. It just has started. So I really don't want to be negative about this. I really want it to grow and see how it is operating. And you see, we should let it grow first. And it's only been 8 or 9 days. So I think after spending like 30 days or a month, we will be able to understand, and everyone will be able to put forward suggestions as to how we can improve it. But for the time being, I would love to see, motion applications with less urgencies are also accepted by the honorable court. However, since as far as the lower courts are concerned, at least the bail applications are being conducted in a successful manner. So I hope to see that interim applications are also heard and regularly heard, and also in High Court as well. Interim applications can be filed and heard along with motion applications. The last thing that I would like to mention in respect of High Court litigations, if regular court does not resume in next 1 or 2 months, virtual courts should open the door for final hearing of urgent cases, because people will badly suffer because of this. So I would love to see that change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barrister Samiul Haq, sir. And before going into the next question, I'd just like to say that we actually wanted to, the main purpose of these specific questions were that we have been blessed and we have been fortunate enough to see all three of you, our esteemed panelists, doing their magnificent work in their respective field of preferences, and we have been fortunate enough to be your students and everything. We wanted the world to know from you based on these specific questions. Unfortunately, we could not really ask all these questions due to time constraints, but I would like to go to Barrister Ferdaus Rahman sir. It will be a bit of a cramped question with a few strands, so bear with me a little. Do you think that our corporate culture has enough in it to support specifically the young employees due to these uncertainties, the lockdowns and isolation? And what are the things that we should do to ensure building a crisis-resistant, technology-core organizational culture after the pandemic? Barrister Ferdaus Rahman sir.
Thank you very much. I think that would also require a separate webinar if we want to get it in detail in justice. But I think if I can be very succinct in terms of, in the interest of time, first and foremost, yes, of course, whatever the situation is, I think our total culture is capable of making sure that we can cater. There is nothing, as both of my esteemed panelists have said, that there's nothing that would actually get you to lose your hope. Do not give up. So of course, there are much more we can do. Now, coming to an organizational crisis resistance culture, if we talk about how we can do that, what we can do that, these are detailed issues. The first thing that comes to my mind is that this is the time when you take expert helps, people who have different experience, and this is the time when we collaborate. For example, if I have experience in some things and I do not have in the others, there is nothing wrong with me asking for help. So I think as a young lawyer, you need to do that. As employers, we need to do that. And as clients, they also need to do that. So everyone needs to come to that particular understanding that how do we deal with this situation, and the only way out is using our accumulated experience. And I think let the experts sit down and stipulate. We need specific defined process and policies, because written documentation, rules, regulation are going to be our friend in the coming days. Whether you talk about successful implementation of virtual court, you need specific guideline, rules, regulation. This is just a start. We would have the details coming up as we progress, as Samiul was saying. If any of it is you are looking up to a corporate entity, you might not have thought of a lot of things in your rules and regulation, internal house policy. Now you need to. As a lawyer, even as a law firm, we are doing that. As a lawyer, as an individual practitioner, you are finding out certain things. So it's not only an organizational culture, it's not only crisis resistant system for an organization or an entity. On individual level, too all out to state level. What we need is to take a step back, reassess the situation, and as Khaled sir said, first survive, then restructure to recover. And that's what we all need to do. And last but not least, I think what I would suggest is that to encompass all of this, uh, from a very corporate point of view, if you are a lawyer, this is the time when to make sense of what's happening, how it's going to happen, how you're going to deal with your clients, and how you're going to deal with your own profession. I would say that expose yourself to following concepts: HR, finance, IT, procurement and supply chain, sales and marketing, branding and communication, and overall world and global politics and economy. Because this whole process would come down for you to be someone who is capable of providing what the coming days would need as from a lawyer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barrister Ferdaus Rahman sir. And indeed, unfortunately, as much as we'd love to hear more from all of you, and certainly as it has been amazingly educational and enjoyable at the same time for me, and I believe I speak from for all our audience today as well. Before going into a conclusion, I think it will be justice to the audience if we take at least one question each for you from them, and we'd like to have a brief input from all of you on that. Uh, One particular question, I think I would ask this one to Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury, sir, Barrister at Law, which is that I think this is a very wide-ended question, but I think a bit input from you would be nice. That how law helps in politics. This has been asked by Mr. Rashidul Islam.
I wish I could understand politics a bit more, but well, you see, when you study law, you are it teaches us to be with people, isn't it? Because we are providing service to the industry. So a good doctor, a good lawyer, I would say, I mean, in a way, because we are solving problems of people. People are coming, our clients come to us with their, the most urgent scenario, the urgent complexities of their lives. In that way, we begin to learn the needs of the society. So in a way, I would say practicing lawyer, right? He or she has more opportunities to deal with people in their lives, number one. Number two, it has become a norm that, law has a bit of a political studies because we learn ideologies in jurisprudence, right? And we have our own, like Sami, he's the teacher of jurisprudence, a very, I would say, leading one, right, for years, and he can tell better. So once you have those knowledge inbuilt, right, and you start dealing with people from different aspects of life, a good politician, I think one of the biggest virtue is the adaptability, right? So wherever the person is, whether he's with the elite of the society or he's in his sort of constituency, right? He has to understand the needs of the people, the needs of the population. In that way, a good politician basically means he should be a leader, right? And leader is someone who would actually be able to command and earn respect and help people out. In that way, I think it has become a sort of a trend that law and politics are quite interconnected. I'm not saying that, of course, there are people in other profession, fantastic leading politicians, but in that way, I think because of the nature of service that we give, because of our education development, right? A lawyer, I mean, predominantly has done very well in politics. Look at the American presidents. How many of them were actually lawyers? I mean, in that way, it might be. I'm not talking about Donald Trump, of course, right? Other than him. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury, for such an informative insight. The next question is asked by Mr. MD Khadimul, and I would like to direct the question to Barrister Samiul Hoxha. The question is that some of the law firms are mainly based on corporate and advisory work, and they work longer hours in their chambers. What would be the best advice for them to design their working method post-Eid period? Not post-pandemic period, as the newspaper said. So Kindly unmute your microphone. Thank you. So,
Yes. So the person he wants to know about how the post Eid. Sorry. So can you repeat it again? The
yeah,
question.
of course. The question is that some of the law firms are mainly based on corporate and advisory work, and they tend to work for longer hours in their chambers. So, what is the best advice, according to you, that they can that you can give to design their working method post Eid period, like after Eid when everything opens?
I think they have already developed a working method. I think most of the chambers that I know, they have already developed this method. I have heard from many of my junior colleagues and as well as my fellow colleagues that they have developed this method because most, and especially in our chambers as well, Credence LP, we have developed it as well. And then normally the juniors, the associates, they're advised not to come. They're working from home, and obviously, most of the corporate works can easily be distributed through technology, through emails and obviously conferences. See the Zoom meetings are being held. So I think this can easily be rescheduled. I think this is not a big issue. I think most of the chambers should develop this because there's no reason, especially if it is a corporate work, shouldn't be much difficulty in dealing with this situation while working at home. I think most of the chambers have already, as far as I know, most of the chambers as well as our chambers have already developed this method, and it is comprehensible. And I think well, you see, even the client conference, the client dealing can be done through conference as well. So I think there shouldn't be any embargo on this. However, the challenge is, of course, when it comes to court proceedings, obviously, have there been no virtual court or have there been courts, then it would be a difficult situation altogether because there are a lot of key players involved in the court proceedings. Whereas in the corporate side of the practice, it is quite flexible. Hope this answers the question.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think my co-host has one last question for Barrister Ferdaus Rahman, sir. Barrister Farzana, if you'd kindly take over.
Yeah. The question directed to Barrister Ferdaus Rahman, sir, is that what would be the impact of COVID-19 in relation to studying law? Sorry, my apologies.
May I assist you in any way?
Yes, please.
Right. The question to Barrister Ferdaus Rahman, sir, is that I think this is about the usage of technology and the tools and things like scanners and other things that's necessary. I think this question is actually coming from Pakistan. I think one of our international viewers, that as far as this culture as to technology resistance or the lack of familiarity with the technology, apart from a change of culture, what are the things that you suggest to eradicate this particular problem?
Thank you. I think the complete understanding of the fact that it's not a cultural change anymore. A cultural change is something that you slowly, gradually let everything to take over, and you adjust and you adopt. This is a survival issue. I would definitely say that if I saw the question that if the survival issue based on more technically challenged people to learn how to get more tech savvy, it's not difficult. I understand that if you are not used to it, you might feel a bit scary, but it's not. So how you use your technology, it's going to be up to you. Probably as young lawyers available, this is your time that you go and help your seniors who might find things a bit challenging. Let them adopt, let them sort of roll over. But I think we are already 45 days or more into this situation, and as Samiul just said, that I think most of us, we have adjusted well and adjusted enough to the technological issues. It is just about how we now troubleshoot issues like what to do when this happened, what to do with that, and coming up with SOPs, process, procedure. And once we do that, I think we would be able to incorporate the changes well into our life. And I think every one of us gave the same message that do not think with the pandemic gone, this is going to change again. This is going to stay, and this is going to be the new normal. And if that is not inspiration enough for you to get up and get used to the new situation, technology, and whatever is out there, then I don't think the profession is right for you. Because as a lawyers, as doctors, or in any profession, you need to keep yourself modified, constantly updating. This is your opportunity. And whoever can do it, I'm sure can survive. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Barrister Ferdaus Rahman sir. We are in the end of at the end of our session today. Let me take this opportunity again to thank our panelists, Dr. Khaled Hamid Chowdhury sir, Barrister Samiul and Barrister Ferdaus Rahman sir, for sharing their wonderful insight in relation to the topic of the discussion today, and also highlighting their experiencing, advising our, most importantly, advising our youngsters and the aspiring lawyers who are the new comers in this profession. Uh, I would also like to thank you, the audience, for participating in this session, and I hope you have obtained an insightful version of our panelists and would use their experience to utilize them in their profession. I would hand over the stage to Barrister Faisal Mahmood Anabil on a concluding note.
My heartfelt gratitude to all our esteemed set of panelists. Certainly, we are aware of the value of your time, and considering the extension we had to go through, thank you so very much. We desire and we aspire that we'll have the pleasure of your attendance in any of our future webinars as well. I would like to thank University of West of England. Traditionally, we always have any of the alumni related programs, but unfortunately due to this pandemic, we could not have any. Thus, me and my co-host thought of something like that, and the UE Bristol lead arranged something magnificently. And my special thank you to UE Bristol Bangladesh office, the international consultant Barrister Moshir Rahmanovi, the international recruitment advisor Tausif Ahmed, and the technical support today, Donna and Yuemun. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much for the audience. Thank you so much, our dear panelists. I would like to conclude this today on this note, that may all of you stay well, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay happy.
Thank you.